Hello, all you wonderful people. Welcome. I'm Lisa with Living Life with Lisa, and I personally have been diagnosed with MTHFR, and also in October of 2017, I was diagnosed with early onset dementia. And the purpose of these vlogs are to help those people that work with people with dementia, but it's also especially for people with it, because as if you have been diagnosed with dementia and you're still in the early stages, you understand as well as I do, there is zero support groups out there for us, and zero help as far as emotional help. And so my hope is to put out awareness of this disease, and mine is from the point of view as the person that has it. So hopefully things will change so that you'll see that once you're diagnosed, we're not all drooling from the mouth and needing our diaper changed. We're still, if we're in the early stages, still doing things that everybody else does. And we will always be, until the day we're not here, we'll always be human beings that need to be treated with love and respect. I have found that since being diagnosed that people assume a lot about me that's not true. And the stigma is incredible. But the fact that there are no support groups and no places for us to go to meet face to face with other people is mind-boggling. I keep saying, you know, if I drank too much or had a drug addiction, or if I was married to an alcoholic, or if I had a gambling problem, or if I had, you know, some other disease, there would be support groups. But there are no support groups for, at least not in my neck of the woods, for people with dementia. And there's all kinds of online support, which is great. If it wasn't for that, I don't know what we'd do. But sometimes it's nice just to talk to people. And so my hope is, through this channel, is to bring out awareness, make changes, and also to preserve memories for my kids. So now we'll get into the video. This is actually my second time. First time the battery ran out, and good thing, because I forgot to turn on the microphone, so there was no sound. So anyway, changed the battery, fresh battery, and the microphone is turned on, so you can hear me this time. So tonight I took one of my sons on a mother-son outing, and we went to see the new Star Wars movie, Last Jedi, and it was a good movie for those of you that like Star Wars. I will do this with each of my sons. They pick a movie, and just the two of us go, and then we get something to eat at a fast food place or something, and I do this once or twice a year just so that there's one-on-one, nobody else around, and it's just time we spend together. And I've always done this with them, and continue, but today just happens to be one of the days we did it. And so I haven't been on here for a while, frankly, because I have not been fit to be on camera. I have been bad about getting in the shower, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's the energy. I don't know if it's the fact that I keep thinking I just took one, but it was getting to the point where it was getting really bad, and I knew I needed to take one. And so I took a shower today, and so I thought, well, I'm going to get in here while I'm looking halfway decent. And I know that's probably more information you want to know, but we are keeping this real. I don't, you know, that's one of the reasons I need a caregiver, is somebody to make sure that those things get done. You know, the alarm takes care of my medicine, but it doesn't fill my medicine. I have yet, since the last video I put up, I had to fill it. I did fill the medicine myself, and there still has not been any caregivers come over. The state caregiver, they have not gotten that straightened out yet. It hasn't started yet. I don't know when. It's been a month now. I'm going with my second choice. The first choice never even filled out the paperwork to get paid. And so I texted her today and said, you didn't fill out the paperwork, and she never replied. And so I definitely won't pick her to be my medical power of attorney. I don't know who I'm going to get, but I have to have somebody that's a little more attentive to me than this, because I'm going on 3 or 4 weeks without anybody here helping, and that's just not acceptable at this point. I'm trying to get people in so I can get used to the idea, and all I'm learning is that I can't count on anybody, and that is scary for me, because what happens when it gets to the point that I can't mentally fight these battles anymore, and I don't have anybody to take care of me because they don't show up and I don't have any way of telling anybody. The thing is hopefully I'll be way down the road, and by that point those boys will be adults and they can take over as far as making sure there's somebody in here. But it just boggles the mind that you pay people and they don't show up. You know, I've worked my whole life. I started working when I was 15 years old as a car hop at a root beer stand. And I have always held at least 2 jobs my entire working life. And the only reason I stopped working is I was working the day that, and I haven't told this story before because it's just easier not to explain it, but I went to work on March 7th, 2013, and, is that right? Yes. And had my stroke in the cafeteria while doing breakfast duty. And I've told that story before, so I'm not going to repeat that story. But I went to the hospital, and I was in the hospital. They deemed me needing speech and physical therapy and occupational therapy. They sent me home from the hospital because they said that the dangers of getting sick are worse in the hospital than they are at home, which is true. And so they thought it would be safer for me to be at home and away from the germs than it would be to stay in the hospital and be exposed to the germs. So I came home. Well, on the discharge papers, they wrote down that I needed to follow up on Monday with my, that was a Thursday, that I had the stroke. So they had called and made an appointment for my family doctor for me to go 4 o'clock on the Monday. And so when they discharged me, they put on the bottom of that, under restrictions, no restrictions. So I took that as meaning that, I took it literally, that there was nothing wrong, therefore I could do whatever I normally do. And as we know, if you looked at those early videos, I was a mess. Well, so the Sunday I went to church, and on Monday I went to school and taught. And finally, towards the end of the day, the nurse said, people are getting nervous about leaving their kids with you. They don't think that you're up to being here. And I said, well, I just have one more class and then I'll go home. Said, okay. So finished the day, and I went to my doctor, and he said, and pardon the language, but this is what he said. He said, "What the hell are you thinking, woman? And I said, well, the discharge paper said no restrictions. And he said, that just means you're not on a special diet or anything. It doesn't mean that you can go and do what you were doing. He said, you can't go back to teaching. And he said, you get the Family Medical Leave Act forms for me from the office. You go to the corporate office, get the forms, and I will fill them out. You are not to go back to work and go back to teaching. And so I said, okay, and I got it, and then I was never given permission to go back to work. But up until that time, I never had less than 2 jobs until I had kids, and then that took up my second job. And I just taught and then had the kids. But up until I had kids, I always had 2 jobs. So I was always working, and I forgot what the point of that was. So I don't remember what that was about. But I'm not one of those people that just want to lay down and take things as they come. I have always been a fighter. I've always been a worker. And I believe that there's a reason for everything. And I cannot just sit here and have dementia and sit in my chair day in and day out and wait for my life to pass by. My job is to make sure that people with this disease are treated with respect that they deserve, and not be thrown away. I didn't work this hard all my life and get all the degrees I got and the education I got and do all the things that I did to be thrown away. And none of these people that have this disease did that. And so this video has not taken the road that I wanted it to, but it's heavy on my heart, so I need to say these things. Because I get the feeling that the way that people with dementia are spoken about and presented is in a way that we're trying to cause trouble. We're trying to be difficult. We are no longer the person we used to be. And that it's hard, and that we're hard to take care of. And I get that. I was a caregiver. I know it's hard. I know it's a hard thing. But I want you to keep in mind that we were somebody. And we are just as upset about this. We are just as frustrated that things don't come out right, that we forget words. We are just as frustrated that we can't do the things we used to do. We're just as heartbroken that this is happening as everybody else is. We get frustrated when people can't understand. We get frustrated when people ask us questions that we don't know the answers to, and they think we should know the answers to, and then argue with us about whether or not we know the answers to them. I resent being treated like a child and spoken to like a child. I'm not a child. I'm an adult. And I want support. I want support. And I know that I'm not alone in this. And I feel that it's my job to make sure that people get the support that they need. And so how that looks, I don't know. I don't know. We were supposed to start a support group this month. The phone has been eerily quiet, but has been holidays, so things are just now kind of coming out, and the weather's getting really bad for us right now. For the next couple of days, it's going to be indoors only. It's supposed to get down 25 to 35 below, so they've issued a travel advisory, which means it's a good idea to not be out on the roads. It's not safe because you get flat tire and you're done for. So I need to spend time calling that lady, seeing if we can get the support group started, because we have got to do something. Somewhere something has to start. And virtual support groups are good, but they're not the same as having somebody sitting there and chatting with you and talking with you that understands what you're going through. So I want to tell you the story about what happened before I got sick. It's been many years ago, probably, I'd say 6 or 7 years ago. And I was in this doctor's office, and there was a elderly man in a wheelchair, and a guy that I would assume was his grandson, and pushed him around. And so it was, so we were sitting there, and the grandfather was talking about, and he was elderly, and I'm talking probably in his 80s, and he was talking about Hoagy Carmichael, and that his parents and Hoagy Carmichael's parents. Hoagy Carmichael, by the way, was an American composer born in Indiana, who was extremely famous. He wrote many Broadway musicals and things like that. He was the rock star of his time. He was born in the 30s, so like 1930s, so probably 40s and early 50s was his prime. So Hoagy Carmichael was extremely famous. So this older gentleman was talking about Hoagy Carmichael, and he was telling his grandson, trying to tell his grandson about the fact that his parents and Hoagy Carmichael's parents were friends, and they played cards together, and they ate meals together, and they did a lot of things together. But Hoagy Carmichael was older than this guy was, and so he really didn't know Hoagy Carmichael, but he knew his parents because his parents hung out with his parents. And this is a great piece of history, family history. And the young man that was the grandson was like, yeah, and you could tell he wasn't listening. And I got the impression that he was thinking, oh, here goes Grandpa again, just talking about nonsense, not making any sense at all. But he was making perfect sense to me because I knew what he was talking about. And so I was feeling sorry for the man because he was getting nowhere with this kid. And so, by kid, I mean 20s. I said to the man, I said, are you serious? And he looked at me and I said, your parents and Hoagy Carmichael's parents hung out together? And his whole face just lit up. And he said, yes. And I said, how cool is that? And I said, did you know Hoagy Carmichael? And that's when he said, no, he was quite a bit older than me. So he had already taken off to New York by the time I got around. And I said, that is so awesome. I've never met anybody that was that close to Hoagy Carmichael before. And I said, did they like hang around a lot? And then he went on about how they played cards, and they would, every Saturday night, and then they would go over for dinner a couple times a week at each other's house, and just told this wonderful story about how this history he had, and he was so proud of it, and he was so excited that somebody understood it, and the kid finally started listening. Well, they called him into the doctor's office, and so he went back, and I hadn't gone back yet. When he came back out, he thanked me. He stopped and thanked me for listening to his story and appreciated that I knew what he was talking about. And so sometimes these people that are telling you these far outlandish stories that don't make any sense aren't always them talking out of their heads. They are sharing experiences that they had, And it sounds like they don't know what they're talking about, but they do. The fact was, the caregiver is the one that didn't know who Hoagy Carmichael was. He was the one that was the doofus in the story, not the guy with dementia. The guy with dementia knew exactly what he was talking about, and he knew all the details, and he knew all the stories. The kid didn't know who Hoagy Carmichael was, and therefore was blowing the man off, and missed that whole family bit of family history. So keep in mind that not everything we say, no matter what stage, not everything we say is outlandish. Some of the stuff is true. And I feel like I'm beating up on people, and I don't really want to be beating up on people. That's not my goal. But it's just something that I'm feeling adamant about tonight. Don't blow us off. Okay? I know that this is going to be a long video. If you stay with it, great. Please like, subscribe, share where it's appropriate. But I just think when things come to my mind, I feel like they need to be shared. And that's kind of where I'm at. I want to tell stories on here because I want people to know that we're real people, and that as things progress, I want stories on here that my boys can look at and keep the stories, keep the family stories. And so some of the stories you may hear may pertain just to my family or just to me. The ones I share I think are interesting. So take them if you want to watch them, great. I would love for you to, because I would love to share my life with you. So with that, I'm going to let you go, and know that I love all of you. Caregivers, people with dementia, people that are just interested in the stories, people with MTHFR. I know I don't cover it very much anymore. Every once in a while I do. But know that I love you all. I understand the challenges of each and every one. I was a caregiver for my mother. I get how frustrating the days I wanted to bang my head on the wall are countless. But I understand also the rewards of it, because I wouldn't trade it for a minute. I loved being her caregiver because it was a time that I could pay back things she did for me. And I love my mother, even though she seemed to turn into a different person. And she was comatose at the end, and I kid you not, in her coma, she was more her than she was right before. It was like she reverted back to herself. And I say that because she was always stubborn. When we would try to give her medicine with the eyedropper, she would take medicine from anybody. When it got to be me, she would pinch her lips together so I couldn't get the medicine in there. I had to give her some bad news that she didn't want to hear, and this woman is comatose. She literally turned her head towards me and spit at me, which would have been something she would have done as herself. Frankly, the one she turned into was nicer than the one nicer than what she was before, as far as her temper goes. And so I knew that once she went to the coma, that my mother was in there. And it's really weird, but that's just the way I saw it. So I understand it from the caregiver's point of view. I understand it also from the patient's point of view. And I would love to get a caregiver if I could just get somebody to do it. Maybe I'm just not lovable enough to have one. I don't know. Maybe that's the problem. I'm just not lovable enough to have somebody care enough for me to be a caregiver. But if that's the case, then we'll just have to find somebody that willing to do it for pay, I guess. Maybe we need more pay. I don't know. But at any rate, on that note, I'm going to let you go because it is way past midnight and I've already taken my night medicine and I am exhausted. So, good night. Have a great day tomorrow or whenever you see this. Great day today. I don't know when this will get uploaded. Also, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Love to all of you. Remember to live life to the fullest and live life with no regrets. And we will see you the next time. Bye-bye.